Hey everybody, today I'm down in Calabria, Italy, driving what I think is the most interesting thing I have driven in 2023, perhaps even for 2024. I'm down here vacationing with family and I have rented this from Hertz. This is an Opel Grandland plug-in hybrid all-wheel drive. It's a 300 horsepower plug-in hybrid hot hatch meets, I guess, micro SUV, whatever you want to call it. And what intrigues me about the Grandland is that this has a plug-in hybrid system that it's possible we might see in North America, because Opel is owned by Stellantis, and that is the international conglomerate that also owns Jeep, Dodge, Chrysler, Fiat, Peugeot, Citroën, and of course the Opel brand. This is the exact same plug-in hybrid system that we find in the Peugeot 3008 and a number of other Peugeots available in Europe. Talking about front-end styling first, the Opel Grandland initially started with a look that was kind of Buick-y, to be perfectly honest, because Opel used to be owned by General Motors. General Motors sold them in their fire sale about a decade ago. They were purchased by Peugeot, and since then Peugeot has decided to go in a different direction with Opel styling. It's also sold as a Vauxhall in the UK, just for those that are interested. That's what that Z logo is right there. That's the Opel logo. And recently they've given all the Opels this really broad front-end look. It definitely makes it look wider than the pre-refresh model. I also love these full LED headlights. These are full LED active headlights. They have the active shutter and pixel technology that we see across Europe. So these will allow you to keep your high beams on while you're driving out in the country, even with oncoming traffic, because it's really going to basically just only shine the light where you want the light to go. This is probably the best headlight I've driven in 2023. That should tell you something about kind of how backwards, honestly, North American headlight regulations are. The size of this is also kind of intriguing. It's 176 inches long, so this is definitely smaller than something like a RAV4 Prime, even though we have about as much horsepower and about as much curb weight under the hood. It's a little bit bigger in some dimensions than a Toyota Corolla Cross, probably about the same size as the HR-V if you delete some of the bumper overhangs that we find in that Honda model. We definitely get a reasonable amount of interior space because in Europe, cars are all about space and packaging efficiency, and that's certainly what we find in the Opel Grandland. Moving around to the back, I apologize for this being relatively dirty. It's been raining all week out here in Italy, and I haven't had the opportunity to clean it because I'm not staying anywhere where I can do that. We have a big Opel Z right there in the middle. Sorry again for the dirty paint here. And then full LED taillights in back, amber turn signals, absolutely, of course. And then a relatively vertical hatch. This hatch is powered in this model. We find about 14 cubic feet, 13 cubic feet of storage space according to the specs. But remember that in Europe, they don't measure cargo the same way that they do in the US. So in reality, this cargo area seems to be about the same size as maybe a Kia Niro, something along those lines, or a Honda HR-V. This is the charge cable. We'll get into that in just a little bit. If I lift the floor up, you'll notice we have a bit of additional storage space under here. This is where you can put the charge cable. There's also a removable tray for wet or dirty things. And the 12-volt battery for the vehicle is right down there. It's actually a very, very tiny, maybe almost like lawnmower, electric lawnmower start-sized battery. Power hatch right there is fully adjustable, but we should take a look under the hood now because that's the most intriguing thing about the Opel Grandland. This isn't Opel's first plug-in hybrid system, but it's definitely their best, and that's all thanks to Peugeot, because this is essentially a Peugeot plug-in hybrid system. It's based around a 1.6-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. In Europe, it's rated for 300 horsepower. If this came to North America, it probably would be rated for around 295 to 298 horsepower because the calculation methods are a little bit different. We have a 110 horsepower electric motor up front and a 113 horsepower electric motor in the rear. Everything is combined with an 8-speed automatic transmission up front. And the way this hybrid system functions is surprising because it is so smooth for the design of this system. Thematically, this is pretty similar to what we see in something like a Volvo XC90 actually, some of those Volvo plug-in hybrids, because up front we have the turbocharged engine, produces about 200 horsepower, an 8-speed automatic. We don't have a torque converter. Instead, we have that large electric motor positioned between the engine and the transmission and a clutch pack. So the front electric motor drives the vehicle forward via the transmission. Then we have that slightly more powerful electric motor in the rear, 113 horsepower approximately. When this is driving in electric-only operation, that motor in the back is the one providing almost all the motive power. But unlike some plug-in hybrids out there, If it needs to operate in electric-only mode with four-wheel operation, all-wheel drive essentially, it can use the front electric motor through that transmission. It appears that this electric motor is a little bit torqueier than the rear motor, but the one in the back is a little bit more efficient, so it's going to bias towards the rear electric motor under most circumstances. When operating as a hybrid, to ensure smooth starts from a stop, the rear electric motor starts out providing most of the torque and power for your acceleration. It then starts up the electric motor up front, that joins the party, then the electric motor in the back converts to more of a traction assist motor. So if you're driving this down the highway just on gasoline power, it's primarily front-wheel drive. Unless you engage the four-wheel drive mode, then it's going to try and balance power pretty equally front and rear. But operating regular as a hybrid, it's going to be mostly front-wheel drive. Now, interesting twist, because of the design of the rear electric motor and the fact that power is not going through a stepped automatic transmission, regenerative braking is mostly going to happen back here on the rear. That's another interesting thing that we also see, for instance, in the Volvo plug-in hybrids, but a little bit different than something like a Kia or a Hyundai plug-in hybrid or a BMW plug-in hybrid, where power is flowing back through a stepped automatic transmission. Charging happens over here on this side. Of course, since we're in Europe, this has the Menkes charge plug, but kind of an interesting twist. We're actually going to see some of this same sort of charging style, I guess you could say, coming to North America soon, because part of the new North American charging standard appears to be the ability to have public charging stations where you use this kind of cable. And here's what's going on. In Europe, these are actually just male and female versions of the same cable, so kind of like an extension cord, and that's how you should think of this. You plug one end into the car, you plug one end into the charger, and you never have to worry about broken charge cords because you're taking your own with you everywhere. That's what we're going to start seeing in North America because it's now part of the NACS standard. And actually, I should mention that weird twist. The other side of the NACS connector for those public charging connections actually appears to use this exact same European plug. Exactly why that is, rather than just having a male and female NACS connector, I don't know. That's all up to the Society of Automotive Engineers, who has just released specifications on the new J3400 charging connector. But back to the Opel. The battery on board is just over 13 kilowatt hours, and according to Opel, that will give you an incredibly optimistic EV range. This is the point in the video where I have to remind everybody that's always amazed about European vehicle efficiency that there are a few factors here. A, the test cycle is nothing like the North American test cycle. B, the British gallon is 20% larger approximately than the American gallon. So that's kind of how you get to this vehicle in British advertising getting some absolutely fantastic fuel efficiency figure like 50 or 60 miles per gallon. Also, they're doing the WLTP combining, where they are combining the electric and the gasoline operation together. They say this is good for about 40 miles of electric range. In reality, it's maybe about 28, 29 miles of electric range. Again, that battery pack is a little on the small side because the vehicle is on the small side, but we have actually been getting about 39 miles per gallon in combined driving here in Italy when not using the plug-in hybrid technology. And that is including the 80 mile an hour speed limits on the Autostrada, actually 81 miles an hour. So definitely high speeds in this vehicle. That makes this notably more efficient than something like a Honda CR-V, and actually relatively close to the other 300 horsepower plug-in hybrid that's probably on everybody's mouths or lips right now, and that would be the RAV4 Prime. It is notably larger than this, but it produces about the same amount of power, and logically, if this ever came to the US, it could be priced about the same, and it could be stuffed into a Peugeot 5008 that's about the same size as that RAV4 Prime. Now let's go ahead and check out the interior first. Obviously, the driver's seat, and here I will have to say, I apologize. I've been in this car for 2 weeks. It hasn't been cleaned or vacuumed, so big apologies on that. We have, of course, a tilt telescopic steering column with a reasonable range of motion. The seating position is a little bit unusual for some North American vehicles, as is this combination electric and manual adjustable driver's seat. Here's what's going on. We have a manual slide forward and backward. We then have a powered tilt to the seat bottom cushion. We then have a manual seat up and down motion, power four-way lumbar support, and then this somewhat awkward knob right back here for the seat recline. That is kind of an unusual, Volkswagen-like feature that we see in some European vehicles. The driver's seating position is actually pretty comfortable. I can have this seat in a fairly upright position, very SUV-like I would say, and I still have about 2.5 inches of headroom, although this model does not have a moonroof. Let's go ahead and check out the back seat with that seat positioned in that manner. See how much room we have back here. Keep in mind this is a relatively small car, but as you'd expect out of a practical European hatchback, plenty of legroom. Yes, this is the kind of vehicle where you actually probably could put a rear-facing child seat behind me, and plenty of headroom. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like back here. Actually about almost as much as we had up front, so maybe about 1.5 inches, 2 inches. This front seat is all the way back in its tracks. You can see here that we have some air vents for the rear seat passengers as part of that center console, and a relatively flat floor. That's because there's no drive shaft going front to rear. This is all-wheel drive via an electric motor, and the batteries are basically positioned mostly under the rear seats here, a little bit in the cargo area in the back. That's why we don't have a spare tire. Center seatbelt position, of course, comes out of the seat itself there, and the rear seats fold in a 60-40 fashion. You have to put those headrests down right there, and then it's kind of a cargo ramp up from the rear rather than a flat cargo area. But we do get a ski pass-through, which is definitely good if you're planning on going to the Alps. On the interior of the Grandland, we have some features that I hope make it to North America and some that I certainly hope stay in Europe. But let's start out up here at the top where we find the telematics controls. Those are not activated on this Hertz rental. Keep in mind that we don't have a moonroof here either, so pretty tall ceiling as far as headroom goes. We have sun visors that don't slide side to side, but we have height adjustable shoulder belts for the driver and front passenger, and height adjustable headrests up front too. You can see the logo for the GSe model right there. E, of course, stands for the plug-in hybrid system. GS is the new sporty trim of the Grandland. So even though this is kind of a family vehicle, you notice we have pretty aggressive front seats with this aggressive shoulder design right there, decent bolstering, and even bolstering on that seat bottom there. It's a combination of what looks like imitation leather on the outside and this imitation suede fabric with some different colored accents right there in the middle. In a very European fashion, very BMW-like, we have the thigh cushion extension, something that I really appreciate there. These seats were certainly comfortable for hours and hours at a time on the Autostrada, but because this is the GS trim, the suspension is on the firm side even for a European hatch like this. Moving over to the front doors, we find a portion of soft touch and hard touch materials. So we do find a soft touch armrest right there and armrest padding. To give you an idea of how small this vehicle is, really, you'll see the position of that pillar right there. When the front seat's all the way back in its tracks, a taller person's elbow would really be right over there on that pillar rather than on the soft touch component. There's a reasonable amount of storage down there at the bottom of the door, and then we find one of the speakers down there at the bottom, and then another speaker right up there, right next to that side view mirror. I was actually pretty impressed with the sound system in this model, but we'll get to pricing later because this is not an inexpensive hot hatch. On the dashboard, we have some imitation carbon fiber. I think that looks a little bit more attractive than the shiny black plastic that we find next to it. There is definitely a lot of shiny black plastic in this interior, and that's something I really wish they would just keep in Europe and not bring to North America. Harder plastics down lower on the dashboard. This is kind of a rubbery section right here, and then we find actual hard touch injection molded plastics there. Pretty large glove compartment inside. You'd have no problem fitting an 11-inch tablet computer in there. Now, speaking of 11-inch tablets, we kind of have an 11-inch system grafted into the dashboard, but what's odd about this software, and this is definitely one thing I would hope that would stay here as well, is that you'll notice you don't really use most of the screen. So this is a pretty large touchscreen, but these sides are permanently used by the climate control settings. I really think that's a waste of space. Even the factory nav system, which we can go over to here, does not use the entire extent of the screen. Really, nor does just about anything. Vehicle apps, the settings for the vehicle, driving function settings, etc. None of this uses the entire screen. So I really just wonder why they didn't just give us a 7-inch screen and maybe a cheaper digital display, because really all you get out of this system is the 7-inch display in the middle. We do have some physical buttons below. Again, lots of black plastic there. Single big air vent down here for the driver, kind of interesting style touch. That's there because the passenger has 2 air vents on either side of that faux carbon fiber strip. Then down here we find some physical controls for the climate control system. So again, not quite clear why they didn't give us a smaller screen, because we have the readout there and we have all the physical controls for the climate control. This can air condition and heat the cabin when in electric mode as well. Kind of a nice touch. Also, more black plastic there, lots of shiny plastic going on there. Here's where we find the USB interface for the system, 12-volt power port there, and a wireless charging mat. Down here we have a button for the parking sensors, the steering for the highway assist system. It's lane centering, of course, not auto steering. This is the lane departure mitigation button. We then have the fuel door, and then kind of a joystick style shifter here. You put your foot on the brake, push the unlock button, and then pull back for drive. You then pull back again for the expanded regenerative brake mode. It's not one pedal driving, but it is very aggressive regen braking. Over here we have the drive mode selector. This allows you to choose between the various different drive modes. Those are going to be shown over here on the driver's LCD. We have hybrid, which is pretty self-explanatory, sport, which is going to try and keep the battery charged a little bit more and give you the most power and responsiveness. We then have four-wheel drive, which is going to try and balance power 50-50 approximately front to rear until you hit over 200 horsepower. So this is a pretty capable all-wheel drive system. And then we have the electric mode, which it won't actually engage because it just started the gasoline engine there. It's going to have to wait till the gasoline engine heats up. Back on the central LCD, you can see the power flow, also lots of fingerprints there, sorry about that. We have statistics, we have charging options, you can do the charging timing, and then the e-save mode is going to preserve some of the battery for later. That's definitely an important mode considering that this is a 300 horsepower system, but only about 200 horsepower is coming from the gasoline engine. So if you're going up hills, there's going to be a point where it's going to feel like a 4,000-pound vehicle with only 200 horsepower under the hood, because that's exactly what's going on. Back here in the center console, again, more shiny black plastic, electric parking brake, two surprisingly big cup holders. They, of course, are removable. We have a storage mat under there. Then we have a center armrest here, nicely padded. It reveals a relatively small storage compartment there in the middle. Again, keep in mind, this is not an overly large vehicle. The design of the steering wheel gives me a little bit of a GM vibe. We have sport grips up top, perforated leather on the side sections here. Paddles on the back. These are shift paddles because, of course, we have a regular 8-speed automatic transmission. You'll find the controls for the adaptive cruise control or speed limiter function over here on the left side, in addition to the heated steering wheel control, and then the infotainment options over here on the right side. All right, it's time to get this little hot hatch out on the road. We're starting with 77% state of charge. So the first thing you'll notice is it's going to default to electric-only operation. Now, unlike some plug-in hybrids out there, if you press hard on the accelerator pedal, it is going to start the gasoline engine. I personally prefer that, and the way that Opel has dealt with this is that there is a little bit of a detent in the accelerator pedal, so you can get pretty aggressive with the pedal in electric-only operation, and then you'll feel as you go a little bit too far, it's going to kick on the gasoline engine. Because of the way the electric motors are arranged in this vehicle, it's going to default to being rear-wheel drive in electric-only operation because that's more efficient. Power's not going through the automatic transmission in that condition. But if I come to a stop and I romp on the accelerator pedal a little harder, it is going to start using the front electric motor. It's going to join the party there for a bit, and then it's going to leave the party pretty soon because it's going to be more efficient to just go with the rear electric motor. And you'll notice here that the regenerative braking is basically just happening back there on the rear. If you dig a bit deeper into the throttle, especially from a standstill, then the front electric motor joins the party. You can actually see that icon right there on that screen, and then it's going to leave the party in steady state driving because it's more efficient to not have it there. Also, all the regenerative braking, as you can see, really is basically happening back there in the rear. Again, because we don't have that mechanical loss and we don't have that feeling of the transmission shifting that not everybody's a fan of. That's kind of the one weird twist with this system, is that if you're driving along and you want a little bit more oomph out of the electric system, you kind of have to wait for that front electric motor to join. Then you're going to feel kind of a little bit of a shift as it does join. It does, however, have the benefit of giving you all-wheel drive capability when in electric-only mode. And I can even go ahead and select this drivetrain selector down here over to the four-wheel drive mode. You can see now it is indicated there. Whoops, sorry about that. It's indicated there, and now you can see that it's trying to use both motors basically all the time to accelerate the vehicle. And if you're too aggressive with the throttle in this mode, then the gasoline engine is going to turn on in order to help the vehicle balance that power out front and rear. It's also going to turn on in sport mode because it wants a little bit more power there. That's going to try and give you 300 horsepower most of the time. Hybrid mode is going to try and balance these priorities out, and electric mode, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's really just going to focus on the electric operation. Over the approximately 800 miles that we've been driving this vehicle in Italy so far, we've been getting pretty impressive fuel efficiency, 36 to 37 miles per gallon on average, which does include a lot of time on the autostrada at over 81 miles an hour. The speed limit here in some sections is 81. You can definitely spend hours and hours going 80 plus miles an hour here. That's particularly good fuel economy for high speeds. Remember that aerodynamics and drivetrain efficiency at higher speeds can be tricky in some hybrids. This is going to be definitely more efficient than some of the Honda hybrids at those higher speeds. Now, at lower speeds, we actually did spend quite a bit of time on some country roads driving around 50 to 60 miles an hour. There we were averaging over 47 miles per gallon, so definitely very, very efficient for this drivetrain. The counterpoint to the lofty fuel efficiency numbers are, of course, the real-world electric range numbers. In real-world driving in North America, you'd probably get about 20 miles of range out of this battery pack, maybe 30 if you treated it very, very gently. That's definitely less than the approximately 40 miles of European range that they say you'll get. That's because WLTP is very, very unrealistic, mind you. And in winter weather, you could expect it to be a little bit lower. But electric range is not necessarily the point of this particular plug-in hybrid system, especially given the size of the battery pack. If we saw something like this in North America, I wouldn't be surprised if it got a bigger battery for a bigger vehicle. But again, the point of this is more of a gasoline mitigation system while still giving you high performance. If we're talking about European vehicles about this size, 300 horsepower is not only pretty rare, it's generally not terribly efficient. And this is very different because it's very efficient and has pretty solid performance numbers as far as the system goes. And you can really stretch out the distance between gasoline stops. In this vehicle, we've been driving about 400 miles, 300 to 400 miles on a tank of gasoline. It's an approximately 11.5 gallon gas tank. If you were able to plug this in every day, like we have in some days of this trip, then you can really stretch out those gas station stops, which in Europe would be pretty handy, and in North America could be even handier. As far as the rest of the driving dynamics of the Opel Grandland, they're probably a little bit less important for some of you since you're not going to be buying one of these in America, but I would say it actually has a relatively solid feel to it. It doesn't feel quite like a Volkswagen. I would say it's not as engaging as some of the other German options. The steering can be a little bit vague. The suspension is a little on the firm side for my tastes. I don't think of really firm suspensions when I think of Opel. Of course, there is that Buick connection in the United States for quite some time. But generally speaking, Opels are solid handling vehicles. They're just not overly exciting vehicles, and I would say that does translate to this Opel Grandland GS. If you're thinking 300 horsepower hot hatch, you're probably thinking Volkswagen Golf R. That's not what this feels like. The transmission can be a little bit slower to shift modes than a really aggressive driver might like, but you are rewarded by pretty solid capability. Because of the nature of this system, power delivery is not going to be as immediate as a 300 horsepower performance system, say in a Volkswagen or really anybody else's performance vehicle, a Honda Civic Type R or something like that. But performance is definitely solid once the gasoline engine kicks in and you get rewarded by excellent fuel efficiency. That's probably the biggest thing to know about the Opel Grandland. Handling ability, obviously with 225 width tires, this is not going to be the sportiest option out there. The weight is kept nice and low in the vehicle because battery packs in the rear are relatively low and we don't have an enormous amount of ground clearance, but again, this is not going to feel like a hot hatch. The other interesting thing about this plug-in hybrid system is that they offer a pretty quick charger. You can get this with a 3.6 kilowatt charger standard and an optional 7.4 kilowatt charger. In this model, it's going to take maybe 6 hours or so to charge the vehicle if you have access to 3.6 kilowatts. But if you had the optional faster charger, then you could recharge this battery in as little as 2 hours. So this is the kind of vehicle that's not going to occupy the AC charger for as long as some plug-in hybrids. I really appreciate that faster charger, and honestly, given the size of the battery, I'm kind of surprised that they decided to do that. But then there is the price tag of this, and that is going to be the kicker for some folks out there. This vehicle starts at approximately $66,000 in Germany. Now, the reality is that German prices are not direct corollaries to North American prices. This would probably start $40,000 to $45,000 in North America if it was translated to America pretty directly. We know that by the plug-in hybrids and hybrids that are sold both in Europe and North America and their relative prices. So this is about the same price as a RAV4 Prime in Europe is. That RAV4 Prime is going to be just a little bit faster thanks to its design of plug-in hybrid system, and it's certainly going to be roomier than this as well because it's the next size category up as far as vehicle general dimensions are. But this is going to be a little bit more efficient in some situations, especially low-speed city travel. That's definitely a nice touch here, and it's going to be a lot easier to park, of course, in Europe. If this hybrid system were to come to North America, I would not expect it to be in a vehicle like the Opel Grandland. It would probably be in something the size of a RAV4, say a next generation Jeep Cherokee or perhaps a next generation Jeep Compass, something along those lines. And this hybrid system, I think, would be a pretty darn perfect fit for a vehicle that size. Be sure and let me know what you think about all that down there in the comments section below. And next time you're out in Europe, be sure and check the box for one of those plug-in hybrid options, because you may be pleasantly surprised by the amount of power capability and performance that you'll get out of something like this. I have to say, this is the most fun vehicle I have ever rented in Europe, and I have rented a decent number. Most of them have tiny little engines under the hood. They're not terribly powerful. I love the manual transmissions they usually come with, but this is an awful lot peppier, especially if you're trying to do 80 miles an hour on the autostrada. Let me know what you think about all that down there in the comments section below, and which Stellantis product do you think they should just try and jam this plug-in hybrid system in next? The rumor mill is telling us that the next generation Opel Grandland is going to be riding on the same Stellantis STLA medium platform that a number of other vehicles that will also be sold in North America will be riding on. So that relationship is definitely there, and it's entirely possible we could be seeing this at some point soon. Well, tomorrow this rental car goes back to Hertz, so it's time to talk about how things went. So far, we've driven 2,200 miles. I'm referring to my notes here to make sure I get everything absolutely right. 2,200 miles in the odometer. There's going to be an extra 50 miles tomorrow, but so far we've averaged 40.5 miles per gallon while operating just as a hybrid. That is absolutely fantastic. Again, remember that on the autostrada, the speed limit in a lot of areas is 81 miles an hour. So we're talking pretty high speeds where a 40 mile per gallon RAV4 would definitely be getting below 40 miles per gallon. We've gone 2,200 miles, used 210 kilowatt hours of electricity approximately. 33 miles is what we've averaged per battery charge so far. That was definitely a little bit worse the last time I saw you when we were talking about the drive section. That's because in this area of Sicily, we've found a lot of charging, and the roads, even though there's a lot of elevation, we've actually had kind of more of a gentle rolling hill situation going on here, where speeds haven't averaged quite as high as they have been in some areas. So 33 miles per charge on average. Our rolling average over the 500 miles of EV operation has been 2.4 miles per kilowatt hour. That's a solid score for a plug-in hybrid, especially an all-wheel drive plug-in hybrid like this. And I have to say, the Opel Grandlands is not only my favorite European rental car so far, this is probably the best plug-in hybrid I have ever driven. I have been really impressed by the performance of the plug-in hybrid system, the smoothness of its mode changes between hybrid and electric-only operation, and even in situations where surfaces have been a little bit slippery, it's been raining out here, we've been driving on some gravel roads, some dirt roads, etc., the all-wheel drive system performs incredibly well. Let me know what you think about this down there in the comments section below, and ignore where I talk about pricing, because yes, this is approximately a $60,000 to $65,000 car if we were going to translate this to North American dollars, but that's not what something like this would cost if it came to North America, because a large portion of that price is wrapped up in taxes. And if this were transplanted right into North America, it would probably be around $20,000 or so less than that equivalent pricing. So this is the kind of thing that Stellantis could bring to North America, whether it was labeled as a Peugeot, or whether it was labeled as an Opel, or a Jeep, or a Chrysler, or a Dodge, or something along those lines. They could bring this format of vehicle to North America at some point. And honestly, I really hope they do, because again, this plug-in hybrid system is pretty darn good. Let me know what you think about that down there in the comments section below. If you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button. And of course, stay tuned, because who knows what I'm going to be driving next year. See all of you later.